I cycled slowly along the lane, avoiding the frozen puddles that dotted the rutted surface. Frost sparkled on the trees, and through hedges and gateways I glimpsed the twinkle of Christmas lights, welcoming visitors at this special time of year. Not so special for me, I muttered, then chided myself. Don't be so negative, Marissa. It might have been the 25th of December, but for me, it was just another working day. At 7:10, the same as I always did, I left my house to make the 1.5-mile long journey to Fairfield House Retirement Home, where I'd worked for the past 2.5 years. As jobs went, it wasn't bad, but sometimes I craved the company of people who were a bit, well, younger. There were only so many games of bingo a girl could take, and don't even get me started on lawn bowls. Alas, it wasn't to be. According to Barbara's schedule, which she'd decorated with glitter and pinned in the foyer today, I'd get to enjoy carols at 10, shuffleboard at 11, Christmas lunch at 12, and the Queen's speech at 3, followed by a visit from Santa. Fun times. For a moment, I wished I were back home in Somerset with my family, arguing over which movie to watch and trying to steal cherries out of the Christmas pudding. Right about now, my nephews would be racing downstairs, each trying to get their stocking first. I'd been invited, of course, but I'd had to decline. I'd been left with little choice. Had my mother believed my tale about having to feed my next-door neighbour's cat while they took a trip to Casablanca? Probably not, but the deed was done now. If only I could turn the clock back a few weeks. The problem had all started when I'd accompanied my mother to Mrs. Collins's sip and paint party. With hindsight, that was the invite I should have declined. But I quite enjoyed art classes at school, and then wine was mentioned. The rest was history. Mrs. Collins's daughter, Rowena, would be getting married at the end of January to a lawyer, no less, and it was the talk of the village. Everyone from the milkman to old Mrs. Swenson at the post office was speculating about the style of her dress, the colour of her bouquet, and how many bridesmaids would follow her down the aisle. I'd put my money on Empire Waist, Violet, and 4, quite literally, because Celia Bainbridge had organised a sweepstake, when the inevitable happened.
"So, Marissa," Mrs. Collins started, "when are you going to find yourself a nice fellow?"
I'm not really looking at the moment. It was true. I wasn't. In fact, I'd been avoiding men since my ex-boyfriend, the man I'd thought was the one, had decided the barista who served up his decaffeinated latte every morning, soy milk, no sugar, gave him a better wake-up than I did.
"Are you sure? Because you're not getting any younger, my dear. Your biological clock is ticking away."
I was only 22, for goodness sake. I desperately tried to think of a witty reply, but an excess of Chardonnay and a sudden panic that maybe I would spend the rest of my life alone meant that when I opened my mouth, nothing came out. Mum decided to help me, bless her, but several glasses of Pinot Grigio had made her brain-to-mouth filter malfunction, so what actually came out was,
"Oh, Marissa's not really into men."
Every single mouth fell open, and Celia dropped her paintbrush as well. Mrs. Willis recovered first, and she patted me on the arm.
"Never mind, love. Perhaps you can find yourself a nice lady friend instead."
No. I did not want to become the subject of village gossip, or worse, matchmaking. The only lesbian in Engelby was Patty Harris, and she had a black belt in judo and scared me a little bit. If I didn't nip this in the bud, we'd be getting joint invitations to supper parties before the week was out. What Mum meant to say was that I'm not into other men. Good grief, had I lost the freaking plot? Because I already have one. My mother turned and stared at me. This was news to her too. Still, in for a penny, in for a pound, I blathered on regardless. Yes, I met him at a friend's cheese and wine evening, and he's everything I've always imagined. Like, totally imagined. The ladies beamed at me, their pearly whites a sterling advert for denture cleaner. What had I done?
"Oh, congratulations, darling," Mrs. Collins said. "Promise you'll give me plenty of notice before I need to buy another hat."
Absolutely. Years and years and years. As I tried to slope off to the bathroom, my mother caught up and grabbed my arm, her excitement bubbling up and spilling over the edges.
"Marissa, why didn't you tell me?"
"I wanted it to be a surprise," I said miserably. "Well, it certainly is that. You'll be bringing the lucky chap over for Christmas dinner then? So we can all meet him?" "What? No. I think he's working." He was definitely working,